The Merrett trade falls through. I repeat, the Merrett trade falls through, as well as multiple other trades. All updates are here on ET Footy. Let's get into it. G'day guys, ET back with another trade update video for the final day of the trade period. First, we're going to quickly go through all the smaller deals of the day and then get into the big stuff like Merrett, Petracca, Curnow. So let's get into it. Let's start with Hawthorn, because they were probably the busiest team on the final day of the trade period. They traded out 2 players and did a pick swap with Carlton. First is CJ, who got traded to the Demons for pick 42. I feel like this is definitely a win-win for both sides. Melbourne gets CJ cheap. He's 26. He's entering his prime. Yes, he was a little bit frustrating in the finals, but for a young Melbourne team who's rebuilding, one of those players that just sort of fills a gap and is going to be a pretty above-average role player on a lower-quality team next season, I think it's a really good pickup for Melbourne. The second player for the Hawks is Jai Sarong, who got traded to Sydney along with a 4th round pick in this year's draft for a 2026 3rd round pick. I feel like this is also fairly win-win for both sides. Yes, as a Hawks fan, I'd like Hawthorn to get a slightly better pick, but Sydney are getting an absolute gem. Sarong's only 22. He's won back-to-back best and fairest at Box Hill in the VFL, and he's an absolute gun. Team of the year at Box Hill, one of the best players in the VFL at, like I said, only 22 years old. He's going to be great for Sydney to fill that need at the key defender position. Now for the pick swap between Hawthorn and Carlton. Hawthorn received pick 10 and 22 in exchange for pick 9, 31, 42, and 43. Again, I think this is a win-win for both sides. Obviously, Hawthorn were trading out their draft hand for better picks to put towards the Merrett deal. Unfortunately, it fell through. Spoiler alert for later in the video, but let's be real, you've probably already heard. And then Carlton get 1 pick better, obviously. Look, it doesn't really matter in this draft with all the compensation picks and father-sons, etc., etc. But yeah, they get an extra 2 picks. Yes, they were later picks, but if Carlton are looking to potentially retool/rebuild, it's good to give an extra 2 or 3 young guys a chance, just sort of develop them and try and get a better depth towards the list, especially in the youth department. So I think it's sort of a win-win for both. Next, we have Ollie Florent from the Swans joining the Blues in exchange for a 2026 3rd rounder. This is solid from the Blues. It's just another experienced player just to add a bit of depth to the list, and I think it's a good pickup for a 2026 3rd rounder, definitely. Next, Jamara Uhagen has officially joined the Suns in exchange for pick 74. Absolute steal for the Suns. I've heard rumours about his contract being between 250 to 300k. His old contract, if you didn't know, was about 800k, so obviously a $500,000 drop off, and it's all incentive based. For example, a certain amount of games and goals kicked will just make him earn more money, which is completely fair enough. He hasn't played at all last season. He wasn't really professional last season because of the personal issues, mental health, etc., etc. But yeah, a fresh start at the Suns could potentially be really good for Jamara. I hope all the best to him. Next is Clayton Oliver joins the Giants in exchange for a future 3rd round selection. Absolute steal for the Giants. Let's not forget, Melbourne are going to pay about $700,000 per year of Oliver's contract over the next 4 to 5 seasons. And for a future 3rd, absolute steal for Oliver. Can't ask for anything more. And they pretty much use that 3rd round pick, Melbourne, to get Jack Steele. Jack Steele to the D's. St Kilda get a 2027 3rd round pick. Absolute steal. It's pretty much a swap for Oliver. He brings experience to the D's, leadership, a great defensive mid, really good tackler, one of the best tacklers in the league. People don't talk about that enough with Steele, and yeah, a really good unexpected pickup for the D's. But I think it's a pretty good pickup considering they have Mychek and CJ now. You've added some experience to this young list, and I feel like they're just solid role players, which are going to help out young guys. And don't forget, even at training, just having the more experienced players with more mature bodies, bigger, stronger, especially compared to an 18, 19-year-old, yeah, it's going to do a lot of good for Melbourne, in my opinion. Now, before we get into the massive trades, the biggest ones of the day, let's look at the trades that fell through. Firstly, Buku Khamis from the Bulldogs is going to remain a dog. Cal Archie from the Lions is going to stay at Brisbane, at least for the time being. Apparently, he can go into the rookie draft or whatever it is and potentially get picked up in about 6 weeks' time. But yeah, we don't know. At this point, he is a Brisbane Lion. Rowan Marshall from St Kilda is going to remain a Saint. Apparently, Geelong threw pick 19 and a 3rd round pick at the Saints to get Marshall to come over, and the Saints declined. I think it's really good for St Kilda. They're going to absolutely dominate with this dual ruck combination with DeConing, and I think it's great. I wanted Marshall to stay this whole time. He would have fit really well at the Cats. Obviously, the Cats ruckman is probably their weakest position at this point, but yeah, Marshall and DeConing in the ruck, it's going to cause havoc. It might be the best ruck duo in the league. Now, probably the biggest story of the trade period, Zach Merrett is going to remain a Bomber in 2026. I feel so bad for Merrett, man. Imagine walking back into that situation at the Bombers. He obviously doesn't want to be there. The whole team knows it. He's the leader. He's the captain, and he's going to be forced to play for the rest of the 2026 season. Look, can he take the year off? Can he fake an injury or something? I guarantee you there's going to be something behind the scenes that doesn't allow him to play more than 10 games or so. He doesn't want to be there. Everyone knows it, and I feel bad for Essendon and the Bombers. Hawthorn offered pick 10. Obviously, after that pick swap with Carlton, they went from 9 to 10. Pick 22, a future first, and Henry Husway, and I believe potentially another third-round pick, but that's the gist of it, or the core of it, and I think the Bombers should have taken this. Obviously, being a biased Hawthorn supporter, I obviously wanted Merrett on my team, but 2 first-round picks, another pick 22, which, yeah, let's be real, it's going to be closer to 30 in this year's draft, and then Henry Husway. Look, like, it's not worth what Merrett's worth, especially with Curnow getting 3 first plus a player. But, yeah, I don't know, man. In a year's time, Merrett's going to be 31. He's probably going to want out again, let's be real. And he's going to get, Essendon are going to get even less back than they would have this year. I think it's horrible both ways. Who wins in this situation? Like, Hawthorn obviously need another A-grade midfielder, but if Newcombe and Day can stay healthy and play every game, I think we're covered on that. But for Merrett, like, what are Essendon going to do? They could have started the rebuild this season, or the retool at least, before Tasmania coming in 2 drafts time. They're coming in the 2027 draft, if you weren't aware. And, yeah, Essendon are going to be stuck in the bottom 4 for the next decade. I don't know what they're going to do, man. I actually do not know. Why did Essendon not add CJ to the deal? I don't know, just another third-round pick. Hawthorn could have chucked in an extra couple picks, maybe. Essendon were just stubborn. They weren't going to do it. It's so weird the way it played out, really. Throughout the last week or so, it was, Merrett's definitely going to the Hawks. Wait, no, they're being stubborn. They're not picking up the phone. A few headlines read, Essendon were being very childish at not answering Hawthorn's calls, etc., etc. Like, I understand why they leave it to the last minute, because they don't want other teams to swoop in. For example, say they already disagreed to the trade, say 2 or 3 days ago, maybe Petracca could potentially become a Hawk, but Essendon don't want that. They would rather, get the best deal possible for Hawthorn. And if they wait till the absolute last minute, Hawthorn could potentially get desperate, throw in an extra pick or so, and that's the reason why they leave it so late. But it's at the point where it's like, no one wins and everyone loses, really. Like, I think Hawthorn are going to be fine without Merrett, as long as Will Day stays healthy and Newcombe plays every game like last season. But from Essendon's perspective, man, I've talked to a couple of Essendon supporters, and they're like we don't hate Merrett or anything for leaving. Like, he's been there like 12 years. Like, it's not his fault the team's so bad. He's one of the best players in the comp. But it is what it is. It was interesting. It was very exciting. It made it one of the most exciting trade periods in a long time, especially for Hawthorn fans. And drama-wise, obviously last season with Battle and Barras was elite. But yeah, drama-wise, this is easily the most dramatic trade period I think we've ever had. Now, next up, we have Christian Petracca heading to the Suns for picks 7, 8, and a 2026 third rounder. So 3 first-round picks for Petracca, not bad at all. And then, along with giving up Petracca, Melbourne also gave up 3 second-round picks, but I'm completely fine with that if I'm Melbourne, because you're getting picks 7 and 8, and it's arguably the perfect start to a rebuild, because 2 top 10 picks, you really can't ask for much more unless you're West Coast or you're sitting at the very bottom. So yeah, I'll take it as a win for both sides, in my opinion. So Gold Coast now have the Brownlow medalists, the reigning Brownlow medalists, the AFLPA award winner. It was Noah Anderson, and Bailey Smith won one of the awards. I can't remember what the name was exactly, but he won an award. And then Christian Petracca, as we know, is a Norm Smith medalist, and at his best, one of the best in the game. So yeah, I know he's 30. I know he's had that injury, and he's not exactly the same player as he was last season. But let's be real, he didn't want to be there. He just really hated Melbourne at that point. They didn't treat his injury the way they should have, and he was obviously unmotivated playing in a non-finals side that was definitely not going to make the finals from early in the season. And yeah, hopefully up in the Gold Coast, good environment, good teammates. Damien Hardwick is going to do everything he can to put Petracca in the best position. Let's not forget, Damien Hardwick coached Dustin Martin. Christian Petracca plays similar to Dustin Martin as a goal kick midfielder. You can put him in the goal square at times, let him do his thing. I think it's a really good fit for Gold Coast, and I think Melbourne are going to absolutely love this draft hand that they have now. Next up is Charlie Curnow is officially a Sydney Swan in exchange for 3 first-round picks over the next 3 seasons and Will Haywood. Sydney also received pick 31, 42 and a 2027 third-round pick. So 3 first-round picks plus a player in a position especially that you need. You can't ask for much more than you pretty much gave up garbage picks that aren't going to be as valuable as these 3 first were, obviously, anyway. So yeah, win-win for both sides, definitely. Sydney obviously get the 2-time Coleman medalist, which fits the need at the key forward position. And I think Will Haywood is going to be a really underrated pickup for the Blues. There's now Will Haywood, Ollie Florent, and Ben Ainsworth. Ainsworth also a small forward. These guys are going to be really good for Carlton. Carlton haven't had a small forward since Matt Owes was traded to West Coast, and it's always been a lacking position for them. I feel like Carlton are going to have a very underrated season next year. Obviously, losing Curnow and DeConing are massive losses, but I feel like they can bring in some really good talent in the draft. So this is essentially the last day of the trade period overall. Comment down below your thoughts and opinions. What do you think of this last day of the trade period? In my opinion, it was one of the most exciting, dramatic ones of all time. So yeah, comment down below, let me know what you think. And now after the trades of Curnow to Sydney, Petracca to Gold Coast, Merrett not going to Hawthorn, how do you think these teams are going to do in 2026? I think Sydney are going to be pushing finals, Gold Coast are going to be top 4. I think Hawthorn are still going to be pushing for top 4. And I think the other teams in Carlton, for example, they're going to have underrated years and especially underrated rebuilds if they go into it before Tasmania comes to the comp. Again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and comment down below. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions. I'm going to be commenting and replying to comments and I'm really keen to have discussions with everyone. So yeah, see you next time.